I'm Ed Stewart. We came down to the Oklahoma County Commissioner building to talk with Ralph Adair about the request that he resign from office. Once going inside his office, we were given this statement by his secretaries. The statement reads as follows. I have served Oklahoma County District 1 as County Commissioner for 29 years. I have served with honor and tried to use good business judgment in my dealings for the county. I am not guilty of any crime and have not accepted any money or bribe in the performance of my duties. I do not believe that I or any county commissioner can get a fair hearing before this grand jury at this time. I therefore decline to answer any questions concerning my activities as county commissioner at the existence of my legal counsel, and I invoke the right to remain silent under the Constitution of the United States. I talked with Mr. Adair earlier on the phone. At that time, he again said he would not go on camera. And he once again said anything that has to be said will come from his attorney. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Oklahoma County Building. I'm standing at Northwest 115th and Santa Fe Road. The Oklahoma City Council decided this would be the best location to build a waste transfer station, where garbage from the north side will be brought here, then later transferred to the south side. There it will be converted into methane gas. Residents from 8 neighborhood associations in the area say yes, it's a good idea to have a waste transfer station, but they don't want it here, and they plan to fight the proposal tooth and nail in court. Some heavy equipment has already been at work on the proposed site. The 8 neighborhood associations against the site says construction may be a little premature, since they are seeking a permanent injunction against the project being built near them. College Park is the closest addition to the proposed site and has been one of the most vocal against the transfer station. There is fear home construction will come to a halt if the garbage transfer station is built. But city leaders heard those arguments at last Tuesday's council meeting. That's when a site at Northwest 142nd in Portland was also being considered. The attorney for the neighborhood says he can't understand why the Portland site was not picked and is going to court to show why he thinks the council made a bad decision.
We had a site on that day that would not impact neighborhoods. That's the thing that has really gotten us. At 142nd in Portland, the only people out there are Kerr McGee. And we say that they had a better site and they turned it down for some unknown reason, and they voted on it before ours, and then they took ours where we do have 1,500 neighbors within a mile. You know, that's the thing that has really upset us.
The council showed a film on how well transfer stations are working in other cities, but it did little convincing for those who have made up their minds a garbage transfer station is only good when it's not nearby. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.
The first clue leading to Corey's arrest broke Thursday afternoon in Jackson, Mississippi. Police Chief Jim Black said that records at St. Dominic's Hospital indicated that Corey had received a shot of Demerol on October 2nd. So Jackson police joined F.B.I. agents and Oklahoma City authorities in the search for the kidnapping suspect.
We now are doing everything that is in our means possible to try to locate this person. Pictures have been circulated, a silhouette, whatever, of a picture of this person been distributed, so that if by chance that if he's down around what they feel maybe traveling with the state fair, then of course if they see someone fitting that description, they will immediately put that person under arrest and notify other authorities.
Because Corey was known to follow fairs, police concentrated their investigation at the Mississippi State Fair, which opened in Jackson at noon on Friday. But as the area was being searched, Don Corey was walking into the police station in Greenville, Alabama. Greenville Police Chief Kenneth Flowers explains.
He came into our department seeking assistance. He had gone to the First Baptist Church here in Greenville and had applied for some help. And the process we use here is they issue a form and the person brings it to the police department, and we have an officer go with them before the purchase is made. And it's a standard policy that we check all people through the computer that come in, and at that point he came back wanted and was immediately arrested.
Flowers added that Corey seemed surprised when told he was wanted on felony charges. The suspect had been driving this brown station wagon, which is loaded with clothes and personal belongings. A woman's cosmetic case is in the back of the car, and Don Corey's personalized business cards are lying on the dash. As news of Corey's arrest surfaced throughout the town, people became familiar with pictures of these two missing Oklahoma City girls. Police started getting several reports from people who thought they had seen them sometime during the week. What started out as a hopeful evening last night has ended a discouraging morning. Authorities searched throughout the night, various places, including the county fairgrounds, all-night truck stops, and cafes, but there's still no sign of Charlotte Kinsey and Cinda Pallett. Meanwhile, Don Corey will face an extradition hearing Monday morning here in Butler County Courthouse. Carol Lambert, Action 4, in Greenville, Alabama.
I met a little boy who was 8 years old in my neighborhood where I used to live, and I became sexually involved with him over a period of about 7 months.
But you were only 12 at the time, so you're still a kid yourself.
Yeah. I had this unusual desire to be involved with him sexually as well as just to be with him for friends.
How many youngsters have you been involved in yourself?
Over, what would we say, a 15-year period, which is about how long this has been going on, I'd say there's been about 150, somewhere around there.
150.
Mm-hmm. The activities were mutual, and they were, I feel in my own mind, they were aware of what was happening, and I gave them free choice to make that decision.
How young was the youngest?
7. I understand them a lot because I seem to still be there. All the children that I've ever had any sexual contact with, I knew them over a period of at least 6 months, and if not longer.
Before any sex took place?
Yeah, going into years sometimes.
Tim O'Hara is head of one of 3 national groups for pedophiles, and their motto is sex by 8 or it's too late, which means from somebody.
That children should have sex at a very early age, if protected with contraceptives, is necessary for child mental health and adult mental health.
Now, how is that done?
By changing the law so that children can have sexual activity at a very early age. And
with anybody?
Yes.
What about other adults, or adults and children?
Well, for one thing, the children has to learn from somebody.
The biggest threat to human life is this broken dam just north of Madill. It's an earthen dam that gave way this morning after 2.5 hours of heavy rain began to fall. The floodwaters quickly swelled the banks of Whiskey Creek, pushing the overflow up to the doorstep of the Brookside Nursing Home. All 110 patients were quickly moved to the armory, where the National Guard had set up relief cots. Administrator Philip Stump said he had little choice.
The problem was, if the dam broke, would it cause access water damage in this area, and could they be harmed? So I had to make a value judgment on that particular situation. I say, I ain't gonna gamble, I'm gonna go with safety. Community comes out, we move them up here.
The nursing home patients will have doctors and nurses on hand to care for them throughout the night. Stump says they'll stay at the armory until the threat is over. The waters in the area seem to be receding some right now, but if this rain continues, authorities feel there may be further damage from this broken dam. Carol Lambert, Action 4 in Madill, Oklahoma. Authorities escorted Don Michael Corey to the courtroom just before 9 o'clock this morning. While the fathers of Charlotte Kinsey and Cinda Pallett watched anxiously from the back of the room, Corey entered a plea of not guilty to 2 counts of kidnapping. Bond was set at $100,000 on each count. Attorney Bob Ravitz was appointed to represent Corey at today's hearing, but there's still a possibility Corey will hire private counsel. District Attorney Bob Macy has accepted the case as prosecutor. Don Corey's preliminary hearing is now set for November the 5th. Carol Lambert, Action 4 at the Oklahoma County Courthouse.
Blaine County Commissioner Orville Pratt started off the government's many cases against commissioners. In less than 2 weeks, he was found guilty of mail fraud. Pratt's case was the first one because it was considered to be one of the weakest cases. So if he was found guilty, prosecutors thought more commissioners who were guilty would confess without much trouble. And most did, except former Oklahoma County Commissioner J.P. Dick Richardson. Richardson eventually pleaded no contest to 15 counts of mail fraud and extortion. He will be formally sentenced next week. Sources say the sentencing is going to be a tough one, since the former commissioner did not plead guilty at first. Building suppliers that paid commissioners kickbacks are also being found guilty. Don Skipworth is the only supplier to fight the charges in federal court, and he lost. Commissioners after commissioners are coming forward every day to admit their guilt in the kickback scheme, once they figure the government has a strong case against them. The investigation started with this woman, building supplier Dorothy Griffin, whose business dealings just didn't seem right to the federal government. Her cooperation led the FBI to getting other suppliers to cooperate. FBI Special Agent Edwin Enright talks about what made authorities suspicious 3 years ago.
Our investigation then indicated to us that Dorothy Griffin was doing a volume of business that was virtually impossible, physically impossible to be done. Looking at county invoices, the records of materials being purchased, a observation of her lumber yard, it was obvious to us that she could never be doing the volume of business physically that the county records indicated.
Enright says he thinks unless there are more checks into county government, corruption will be back in the offices of county commissioners. But that is something state lawmakers will have to do if they don't want a repeat of the current scandal. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The Oklahoma Retail Liquor Stores Association had planned on asking for the resignation of Richard Crisp at today's ABC board meeting, but decided to wait because 2 board members were not there. The association is not happy about what's happening to the liquor industry in Oklahoma, which is shown by ads such as this one that Seagram's is running in local newspapers. Their axe to grind is that the ABC board needs stronger leadership and should have control along with distillers in deciding if wholesale liquor can leave the state. Along with trying to get Crisp out of the director's chair, the Retail Liquor Store Association is proposing new legislation to get major liquor brands back in the state.
We're looking at submitting proposed legislation that will allow it only if the distillery, which is a non-resident license holder, approves it and the ABC board approves it. If these people wish to sell the merchandise and with that approval, then it should continue.
If nothing changes, Braxton sees a pretty dismal future for the liquor industry in Oklahoma.
There'll be a great change in product availability. We will probably see some more companies decide not to do business in Oklahoma, and we will become much more wine-oriented.
Carol Lambert, Action 4.
The weather affected the 4th annual Clarence Page Air Show much more than the air traffic controller strike. Today's winds were too gusty for skydivers and powered hang gliders, but Mother Nature couldn't stop the crowd-pleasing French Connection aerobatic team. Wayne Pierce brought his red and white biplane and his wing-walking wife. The real showstopper was aerobatic expert Bob Hoover and his strike commander. All combined, these pilots gave the crowd its money's worth. The cold weather may have kept this year's crowd from being as big as sponsors had hoped for, but one fact warmed everyone. The proceeds from the air show go to support a worthy cause, the Oklahoma Kidney Foundation. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at Clarence E. Page Airport.
In 1972, Marvin Novak left his job with Ford Motor Company in Paris, Texas. He moved back to Oklahoma. He now farms and raises cattle 6 miles west of Yukon. The past 2 weeks, Novak received almost 10 inches of rain on his Canadian County farm. Last year about this time, farmers in this area were praying for rain. This year, they've had plenty.
We've been able to get a lot better stand of wheat this year. Last year we had to resow so much of our wheat, and this year with the rains and everything, we've been able to get our wheat up in much better shape. It's been so long since we've seen a beautiful stand of wheat such as we have here and wheat pasture coming that it does make us a lot more excited.
Even though the heavy moisture has been extremely beneficial to the state wheat crop, that's certainly not the case as far as the soybeans are concerned. Novak says soybeans are rotting in the field because of all the moisture. But like most Oklahoma farmers, he says he'll take the rain any day. Ben McCain, Action 4, near Yukon.
Accused kidnapper Don Michael Corey Hunted by Oklahoma authorities, arrested and questioned about 2 missing girls. Tonight, Corey is a free man. Kidnapping charges have been dropped and Corey released from the Oklahoma County Jail. DA Bob Macy says Corey's alibi of being in Dallas when the girls turned up missing has been verified.
Corey had given us a detailed statement as to where he claimed to have been during the time the girls came up missing. Yesterday, a couple of Oklahoma City detectives and the public defender took Corey on that route. And there was enough verification of his alibi to establish the fact that he probably was not in the state of Oklahoma at the time the girls disappeared.
Drug charges against Corey are also to be dropped when he completes a rehabilitation program. Meanwhile, Macy says authorities are searching for a new suspect, one who has a remarkable facial resemblance to Corey, but who is taller, standing at least 6'1". Police spokesman Tom Monday.
The information that we're compiling now, we're distributing throughout the nation via teletype, and hopefully we'll be receiving some responses from other cities, perhaps some cities that have had similar crimes with similarly described suspects involved.
If the search for the suspect is back to square one, it's right next to the search for Cinda Pallett and Charlotte Kinsey. Their whereabouts still a total mystery. Larry Audis, Action 4.
The Oklahoma City School Board has put up more than a dozen former school buildings on the auction block. The buildings currently house a number of social agencies, including 3 branches of the Community Action Project. These preschoolers attend the CAP's Head Start program at the old Tyler Elementary School. The classes prepare the youngsters for public education. But Tyler Elementary is one of the district's properties which are up for sale. If sold soon, the CAP would have to look for another place for these preschoolers and for senior citizens at 2 other community centers. In today's economic climate, program officials are pessimistic about finding other suitable locations.
It would be very doubtful to me if I could find suitable space to replace these buildings. In addition, with the funding problems we're having and the cuts, I do not have the funds to rent space. Consequently, it would tremendously cripple this agency.
Oklahoma City School Superintendent Tom Payzant is sympathetic to the agency's needs, but he says the district needs the cash to upgrade facilities for its own students.
The difficulty is that every organization is facing the same thing, and I have the responsibility in terms of administering the schools to see that education is the top priority, and I have to try and get as much in the way of funding as I can for the support of the education activities.
Even if no one bids on the buildings, the social programs could still be in trouble. The district would be obligated to lease the structures at fair market value. And with the current budget-cutting fever in Washington, it's doubtful the CAP would be able to come up with enough money to pay the higher rent. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Southwest Oklahoma City.
Will you swap pants with me? Yeah. You got it down?
I'm Ted Brown, and this is your highway taxes in action. The reconstruction of a section of I-35 and its access roads is fully funded with state and local money. But when it comes to repairing washed-out county bridges, it's a different story. A recent opinion from the State Attorney General's office says no funds already designated for the Transportation Department can be used to repair county roads. It came a little late, since most emergency repairs were already carried out over the weekend by the State Transportation Department.
It's just that compassionate element of an emergency that makes it possible for people to move. But we can't rebuild all of the facilities, just make it possible to relieve the emergency situation.
So unless the legislature appropriates funds, the counties will have to repair the bridges themselves. There is some hope for outside help, however. The governor's office is looking into the possibility of federal disaster aid, but they may not know for 2 months whether southern Oklahoma qualifies for it. Ted Brown, Action 4.
Ann Reed, a chemist at the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, spent the entire day on the witness stand again. She is testifying in the preliminary hearing of Michael Newberry. The Oklahoma City man is accused of raping and killing 15-year-old Janella K. Garrett of Marshall last August 27th. Hair from the victim is being compared with strands of hair found on Newberry's pickup truck. In cross-examination, Reed has been asked more than 100 questions from defense attorney Burt Richard about how human hair is analyzed and compared. More tests are still needed to determine if the hair found on the truck is that of the Garrett girl. So far, about 150 exhibits are being used as evidence in the Newberry hearing.
The next key person to take the witness stand will be the state medical examiner. He is to testify about evidence gathered at the scene where the body was found. But he won't be able to make it to court until November 2nd, so Judge Smith has decided to recess the hearing until then, at which time even more witnesses will be subpoenaed. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Logan County Courthouse.
In a couple of hours, second shift General Motors workers will be finished for the evening. In a couple of weeks, they may be finished, period. General Motors is considering laying off the entire second shift, roughly half of the 5,500 Oklahomans working at the plant. November 6th is reportedly the target date for laying off the second shift. That layoff could continue for months. General Motors could resort to a backup plan that would allow for a temporary layoff of both the first and the second shift. But either way, spokesmen in Detroit and Oklahoma City have no comment about a layoff. However, an executive source in the General Motors plant says an official announcement may be given as early as tomorrow. UAW President Keith Campbell is withholding his comments until GM makes the layoff official. The possible layoff is no secret. The workers are aware of it, they're concerned, and they're talking about it.
I expect second shift probably be laid off.
Right now, everybody's just up in the air, wondering what's going on.
The rumors are the second shift will be laid off indefinitely. That's the rumors. Strictly rumors.
Well, it varies from being shut down for 22 weeks, second shift going, being shut down permanently. There's just a lot of rumors. Right now, though, I think the second shift's going to go.
Seems likely that somebody will be laid off at some point.
Right away. Rumors usually turn out to be something to it.
Hopefully for the workers, rumor, not reality. Larry Otis, Action 4 at the GM plant.
There was no school in Carney today. The town is still trying to figure out what caused a brick wall to collapse on a group of fifth graders yesterday. The wall was used as a windbreaker and was the last of 6 such walls to fall over. Except this time, someone was killed. 10-year-old Justin Thompson was crushed under the 8-foot wall, and 3 of his friends and classmates were also injured. We asked the school superintendent what or who does he think is responsible for the accident.
It's something that, I guess, hindsight, you go back and do different. But today I wouldn't live the same life I did yesterday. I really don't know what happened.
The wall collapsed. All I can say is it was there. It stood for, like I say, it stood for 6 years, and it stood through when the rest of them didn't. I talked to the man last night that built him. I don't think anybody would question him. He's a fine gentleman.
What was his
One of his grandchildren was under it. We as a town, we're not a big town, and so we all feel close to one another. He said, we may argue and fight among ourselves, but when a tragedy or when something bad happens in town, you'll find in a place like Carney that people will pull together, and that's very much true here today.
Students and faculty say Justin was not only a student at Carney, to them he was family. Some students say next week they were going to knock over the windbreaker wall as a Halloween prank, and now wish Halloween had arrived a little bit earlier.
This is the boys' bathroom inside the Carney School gym. This wall, like the walls outside, is about to come over. But school officials plan to tear this wall down before school starts Monday morning. After talking with many residents in the town, we've come to the conclusion that no one blames anybody for yesterday's tragedy, not the superintendent or the builder of the wall. It was just something that happened. Now they're trying to pick up the pieces, and they hope that they've seen their last tragedy. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Carney.
The body of a young black male was found by a man walking along South Portland early this afternoon. The body was in a ditch and partially decapitated. At first, police were unsure how the man had been killed, but investigations at the scene suggest the victim had been involved in a hit-and-run accident while walking beside the road.
Can't really tell right now, but we're